Welcome to Beyond the Current Situation with me, your host, Lily Sanders. So pretty excited. This is our it's a new episode, but it's the third episode of a new series that I did based around Conor Crippen, who is actually with us today. I want to just do a backdrop for you all. So Conor Crippen, he's 29 today, and he's here today with us with his siblings, Jack and Bridget. And I started the top of this series with a conversation with Conor, who is a traumatic brain injury survivor. And he survived a horrific accident 10 years ago. He was hit by a drunken driver. Conor was a pedestrian, and he survived, came out of a 3-week coma, only to find that he had no ability to do anything. He had to relearn every single functionality of living. He couldn't swallow, he couldn't drink, he couldn't do anything. So we had a great conversation around that. And so if you haven't heard that episode, after this episode, go back and listen to the one I had with Conor. And also after that, the second episode was with his mom and dad. And so today we are here with his brother and sister. And so the oldest of the siblings is Bridget, who I am going to bring on. And then there is the monkey in the middle, Conor Crippen. And then I know, Jack, this probably bugs you, but then there's the baby who is Jack Crippen. Okay, so I am going to start us off with welcoming all of you to the show today. But I want to start this conversation with Bridget, who is the oldest of the three. Bridget, you get the call from mom and dad that Conor is in the hospital. Take us back to that time. Where were you, and what went through your mind at that second?
Oh wow. Yeah, so I was in my senior year of college at Xavier in Cincinnati, and it was very late, I don't know, 1 or 2 a.m. And as college kids do, I was still awake. I had been out that night, day before St. Patrick's Day, of course. So it was very early, and I got a call from my mom, and I knew that instantly I knew it wasn't good. She wouldn't be calling me at 2 a.m. for no reason. So yes, I answered it, and it's kind of still a little bit, there's so much that's going on in your brain. It's almost like a blur. But I just remember my mom saying, Conor's been in an accident. Your dad and I are on our way. You need to go home and get Jack and, come to Chicago. We don't know what's going on. So at that, and then it just kind of, and then they hang up, and then all of the emotions that you can imagine come in. I was with my roommates. They took incredible care of me. And then I waited a couple hours until the morning, and then went to Dayton, and Jack and I went with my aunt to Chicago.
Got it. Now, instead of us imagining, what was the emotion that was going on in your mind and heart?
Mm-hmm.
What was your emotions, your personal emotions?
Yeah, incredible fear, a disbelief, like a shock. Um, I was crying a lot. And I don't know if I was even really sad. I think I was just scared because I didn't know what was going on. I would think it was just a lot of fear. And really, yes, I would say probably primarily just shock, just not really knowing what to do
Yeah.
in that moment. Yeah,
Mhm.
my roommates, like I said, they were great. They slept on the floor of my room with me until the morning, so that I could, they knew I knew that they were there. So yes, I think it was just incredible shock and fear.
Mhm. How much did you know at that point? How much did dad tell you?
Not much. I can't even remember if I knew at that time that he was hit by a car, or I think that my mom maybe just had an accident. It wasn't until later that I think we knew the extent of Connor's injuries, the extent of what happened. I did get the sense, I feel like my mom probably said like it's not good. We're waiting to hear from the doctor or something like that. So I think I knew the severity, but I didn't know what even that looked like.
Yeah.
Had no
Like,
idea about traumatic brain injuries at that point.
I had a conversation with your mom and dad before this episode, and your dad recalls uh telling you guys that it's not good. So
Hmm.
that fear and that shock, of course, right? And imagining the worst. So as the oldest, the big sister, um, was there like a part of you that wanted to protect your little brother?
As in Jack.
As in, well, good question. Let's
Hmm.
start. Yeah, let's start with Jack. Yes. So you guys get there. Jack is there. Was there part of you that wanted to protect Jack, your littlest brother, the one not in the accident that is now experiencing exactly what you're experiencing, but through his perspective as the youngest?
Yeah, of course. Of course. I mean, I think that's always what I want to do. I've always wanted to protect my brothers or take care of them, I think is maybe the better way of saying it. But I think at the time, again, it was like you just don't even know how. And I think Jack was also going through a very different thought process,
Mhm.
shock process than I think I was. I think we were both experiencing shock and grief and fear, but I think we were doing it in different ways, which I guess is not unsurprising. I think you
Mhm.
know we just have different ways of thinking. I think
What was
Jackie would
your
probably agree
way?
with that too.
What was your way of dealing with the shock of it all? Right now, let's say, meaning let's
Yeah.
just so that our listeners understand. So you get to you get to Dayton or wherever you were in Ohio, and you get to the
Hmm.
hospital, and mom and dad prepare you, and you go in, and there's your brother in the hospital bed, um and in fact, I'm going to share this while we speak to anyone that's visually looking. And this is what you see. He's hooked up
Hmm.
to all of these wires and things. His eyes are black and blue. What goes through your mind at this time as the sister?
Yeah. And I don't even think that picture does it justice. I mean, it was a
Mm,
horrible scene.
good point.
Um,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, I think I mean, it's an awful picture to see. I think, just looking at him, I mean, you go into the room and the entire hospital room is filled with medical interventions for Connor. And so I think I remember I couldn't even quite go into the room at first. I had to like collect myself on the side of the room, I'm remembering.
How?
And I think I saw him, and then I went to the side and I was just crying, and just to see your brother like that, after you had just talked with him the day before, a couple hours earlier, and to see that visual is horrific. I would wish that on no one.
Mhm.
So I think my thought process though is I need to get there. I need to be able to be there. I need to take care of my parents. I need to take care of my brothers. I need to like just get me there, and I can like help to figure it out there. So I just was like, we just got to get there. I got to get there. I got to be there. And so even as horrific as it was to see Connor, at least I was there. I could have some sort of what I would like to think handle on the situation, although I had no handle on it. There was no control that we had.
Of
But in
course.
my mind, that's how I think about things. I need to help. I need to be there. I need to be a part of it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, as that oldest sibling, right? It's like um knowing that you really didn't have control over that, um now I'm going to ask you, did you feel like somehow you felt helpless even for Conor just lying there?
Totally. Totally. I mean, you're completely in the doctor's hands, kind of the universe's hands. And yes, I mean, it was a very helpless feeling. And especially with something like the brain, I mean, it's just so fragile. So yeah, we had no idea what was going to happen. I had no idea what this journey would look like, or what traumatic brain injury, even what that really meant. So yeah, it was a very helpless feeling as we kind of gathered more information and understood how severe Conor's injuries were.
Mm-hmm. And so now let's fast forward a little bit. Um, and because I had the conversation now with Conor and with your mom and dad. Now let's fast forward a little bit. And Jack is now, Conor is now in that, just the beginning throes of going into that rehab, that first rehab after the
Mm-hmm.
hospital. After all of the love and support from the hospital, now he's going into a completely different place with people that don't know him, people that you don't know, where that same feeling is not poured upon you, right? um and you kind of, I imagine, have to start going back to some other part of your life, right? Whether that was, I guess, college, right? University.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what role did you play with Jack during all of this? Because he's in high school, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think that Jack and I were in very similar situations. I think I tried, to check in and be with Jack as much as I could. I think also though we were trying to support each other because we were both going through this journey that we had no protocol for.
Yeah, you
And
had no
so
training for something like this. Who does?
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think we talk about, my mom had to be there in Chicago with Conor. I mean, she just stayed there. She got up that night and stayed there with him until he came back.
Hmm.
Um, but Jack and my dad and I kind of had to go in and out. Um, and I think that presents its own challenges too of, you have to go back to life and life is no longer, there's, I think, always with some sort of trauma, there's the before and there's the after. And suddenly you're living in this after time and you want to like look around you and be like, don't you all understand what just happened? Don't you understand what's going on in my world? Or don't you understand how like horrible things are,
Yeah.
or things can be? And so you kind of have to, but then it was almost nice to be back in Chicago because then I could be with Conor, I could be with my parents and Jack, and we could be there together in that bubble, as horrible as it was, because it was so horrible and awful to see Conor struggling. But then you go back into real life and you feel like you don't fit there because your world is now different. So I think it was hard. And I think especially for Jack, especially something like high school, going in and out, I think
Ugh,
I don't know, Jack, you'll have to say, I think I
yeah, I will
tried
ask him.
to,
Hmm.
yeah, I tried to check in as much as I could with Jack. And I think he unfortunately had to take care of himself a lot of the time too. Because I think we all were just trying to navigate it within our own emotions.
Right, right. Um, I'm gonna put up this picture of you. I love this picture, by the way. So right now, for those of you that are on audio listening, I put up a visual of Bridget, the oldest, and to her side is Conor. You even have the smiling eyes there, Conor. And then baby Jack in your arms, like this little cute little sibling slash family photo. Um, what do you see when you look at this photo, Bridget?
It's actually funny. This picture we decided to recreate this year for my parents. So it's bringing up a little bit of humor because we created this picture with Jack Jack as a baby drinking a bottle. So it actually makes me laugh a little bit. Um, but it's such a, I love that picture. It's such a sweet picture. I think it presents our personalities so well. Conor kind of mischievous on the side, and
Right.
I'm taking care of Jack, and Jack's along for the ride with Conor and I, and so I think it's a sweet picture. It is funny though. The recreation of that picture is also very funny as
I want
full-fledged
to see that
adults.
recreation. You have to send it to me
We
when you
will.
do that. So like, so looking at this now, and now that you're telling me you've recreated, I had no idea. So this is all very organic, right?
Mhm.
Does this feel like such a different dynamic, this picture from where you are today?
That's a good question. I think in ways, yes. I
How
think
so?
in ways,
What
no.
way?
I think that we as siblings have had to recreate our relationships in some sense.
Hmm.
Because although the spirit of Conor, who he is still there are things that are different, of course, in his personality, or in just how he can handle things in the day or manage, things. And so, so I think there are differences in our dynamic that we've had to navigate in this after time.
Yeah.
But I think the essence of us as siblings, that we love and trust and respect each other so much. I mean, that is always there. That has never changed. But
Hmm.
I would say it would not be, I would not be being honest if I said it wasn't something that we had to navigate after Connor's accident.
Yeah. I appreciate that openness, and
Mm-hmm.
people listening will, because there's a lot of other people out there that really also have experienced some real adversity like this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that don't have a voice, or maybe, they still don't know how to cope. And so, yeah, there's the reality of the things that can't be shared, as it was then, that can't be shared today, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so Conor told me in our episode together, about his loss of memory. Um, does that bother you that he doesn't have a memory of a lot of like his past with you when you guys were growing up?
Um, I wouldn't say that comes up as much. I mean, I think he actually, like, there are some things that he really, some of that long-term memory is there for him. Like, he does remember, and I think some of it's even kind of muscle memory. Like, if you were to ask him to think about, something from our childhood, he might not be able to do it. But if like a song comes on, or if we're talking about, a vacation we all went on, suddenly his memory is there. So I do think some of that long-term memory is still present, which is nice, because he'll just, naturally say something that was a joke that the three of us had,
Mm-hmm.
and you kind of even wonder where it came from, but he just does that, have that memory.
Mm-hmm.
um so no, I think probably with his memory, the hardest is just kind of the day to day
Mm-hmm.
now, that short term working memory.
Mm-hmm.
um I think that would probably be the hardest, because I really don't feel that. I mean, some of it, yes, his long term memory is difficult to recall, but he actually does remember a lot from us growing up,
Mm-hmm.
and things about who we are too. He definitely recalls that very easily. So I think it's more so like the day to day memory
Day
difficulties
to
that
day.
are
So it's
really
more of a challenge,
challenging.
like more today, even a challenge then, is what you're
Hmm.
saying. Interesting.
Hmm.
And so, and speaking of today, you're you're a fairly new mom. You have a 9-week old and a 3-year old toddler
3 year
who's
old.
3 today. Happy birthday to your son who's 3. So
Thank you.
when you're welcome, when you look at when you look at your children today in your current immediate family, your husband,
Mhm.
your baby, your toddler. Is there ever a moment that crosses your mind? Because you know how the thinking mind can be, that at any time something can potentially rock your family world?
Totally. That's the world I live in. That's the thought I live in all the time.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, I think you when things are as random as Connor's accident was, it's hard not to fear that randomness
Yeah.
um, of life and of just how things are. So yeah, I mean, I think as a family, we've had a lot of experiences like that of kind of this random sudden trauma, and it's yeah, it rocks your world a lot. And I think I've had to do a lot of my own work of trying not to live in that space because that helps no one. And so trying to figure out how can I, understand that that randomness of life is there and also continue to live my life, to the fullest extent.
Fully and present.
So,
Yeah.
mhm.
So, what would be an example of some of your own work that you do to go beyond that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've done my own therapy for a long time. I'm a psychologist myself, so I really believe in that. So I've, kind of doing my own therapy, and I think just time to, just being able to have more perspective or have things settle more. I think time just does it doesn't heal everything. I don't, not everything is fixed or better, but I think you kind of learn um, how to navigate it, how to do it, how to manage it, the
Hmm.
anxiety. So, yeah, I mean, I think therapy, I think talking within our family, we're very open
Hmm.
um, about how we feel. And I am very much a proponent of let's be honest about the feelings. It's all not, rosy and beautiful and whatever. Connor is here and he survived, and every moment we are all grateful for that. And at the same time, we can acknowledge that things are really hard and continue to be, and there is a grief aspect that is there. So, being able to get that all out in the open as a family and talk through that, I think is also helps.
Yeah, yeah. The communicating is great, and also just the awareness that, to your point, and I just talked about this with your parents. I don't believe that, I don't believe the hallmark saying, time heals all wounds. I think that's a bunch of BS. Um, Time is time, and what is clock time anyway? Even to Connor, he admits like, well, that human clock time, like, what is that anyway? Like, we have to get beyond that, right? And not depend on time, but depend on other things that are going to really leverage us to healing and to living fully and presently, and also be very, very, really aware that, yeah, you know what, this really sucked, and so now how am I going to go beyond this, right? And so, as I know that I had my past life situations, and again, all about getting beyond it, overcoming it, and in spite of it, right? So, as a sister, as a daughter, as a mom, um well, actually, let's even back up before mom. As a sister and a daughter, while you're going through the recovery time, while Connor was recovering, in what ways did you suffer in all of this?
Uh, in many ways, I it's hard to even sum it all up, probably, but
Hmm.
um, I think that, like I said, in the after time of trauma, there's a lot that you feel like almost gets uncovered about the world, and I think the safety or security of the world was rocked for me.
Mm.
That it didn't feel safe or secure. Um, I think losing and Connor, I hope it's okay that I say this, but losing aspects of Connor was very hard,
Mhm.
or the type of relationship that we had before, which again doesn't take away from our relationship now.
Mhm.
And again, it is different. So kind of grieving that relationship.
Yeah.
Um,
In full
yeah.
disclosure, um, Connor gave me permission to have a very unfiltered conversation. So,
Mhm.
yeah. So, what aspects? Like the physical aspects, the mental aspects, all of it? What?
Um, yeah, probably all. Yeah, I mean, aspects of both the physical and I think probably more so. I just wish, like physically things were easier for him.
Yeah.
So, but maybe more of it's like the emotional aspect, parts of that I do miss.
Hmm.
Just because, Connor has to, he, his brain is working overtime all the time.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, at times it is, I think, hard for him to be present, or
And
to kind
tiring.
of be, and tiring, yeah, and to kind
Exhausting.
of be at ease in the world. I think, like he's I think his body is always just fighting, working so hard that I think it's hard for him to just kind of be at ease in the world.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, I mean, I think just kind of um the maybe the ease of things before.
Yeah,
Um,
I love that you said that. In fact, I'm going to quote something that Connor said to me in his podcast with me. Um, at that very like millisecond of the accident of what he could recall. He said he felt so sure. I felt so sure of myself from my circumstance and situation when my accident happened. And it's interesting you used the word safe because I asked him, "Did you feel safe?" And he really paused. He was like, mm. He wasn't really committing to feeling safe. And it's interesting to me because you're saying you felt this like this essence of safety kind of taken from you as well, right? And as a
mhm,
mom, I totally with you guys 100%. And one of the things as a mom is that we want our children to feel loved and safe, right?
mhm,
Feel loved and safe. And now you're a mom and I'm imagine you're carrying those same those those same desires, right, for your children. And
mhm,
then all of a sudden one day like that that safety net is kind of taken from you. Um Connor, in all of his beauty and love and joy that exudes him, he said it felt like while it happened, that millisecond, it felt like a hug, which again, I thought that was interesting as well.
mhm,
Whether that was a hug from God, the universe, a higher power, whatever that meant to him, that's all really that matters. Um, and so when you, um, as you like go through the motions of your life today as a wife and a mom, what parts of that healing that you had, or what parts of that experience as the daughter and the sister with Connor recovering, what parts of that really helps you in being a wife and a mom today?
hmm. That's a good question. I think that it has challenged me to be more present and to not be so caught up in the fear or anxiety, because of course, yes, when you have kids, the fear and anxiety of the world like multiplies. And so,
Yeah.
but I I have learned, especially with my oldest, that being in that place of fear and anxiety does not make me a good mom, does not make me present for him or my kids. So I think requiring me to be more present, and to not live in that place of fear. And I think maybe also the whole experience has maybe softened just me in general. And I'm trying to decide how I like what that even means. I think that I am more things don't have to be so black and white for me anymore. Like I can live in this gray area of, like, example with Conor, yes, what happened, I will never probably accept what happened, and I will never probably think that it happened for a reason, blah blah blah. And at the same time, I really do value, Conor and I's relationship and where we're at and where he's at. And, so not knowing that I don't have to be one or the other, that I can experience all of those things. And then I can allow other people to experience those emotions and complicated dynamic emotions too, and allowing people the grace of, that process as well. And giving myself some grace too. So, and I think of it kind of like a softening. I think maybe before, I like things, I'm a typical oldest, I'm type A, I like things in order, I like things black and white, I like a routine. And so I've kind of come to understand that is just not life. And so it has allowed me to, I think, be more present, be softer, and maybe braver in a way.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And it actually brings tears to my eyes just listening to you say that. I totally get that. Coming from adversity myself, I like the way you explain that as being a softness. I'm also, I also was very type A, and even just coming down a few levels and then having like a few levels in that mind conditioning, in the physical world, the external world, and then raising the light more in even on a spiritual plane, that particular balance, a lot of us find that have been through adversity, myself included, is really what begins to open up more light and more light and more gateways into understanding, but more importantly, peace and right. And like you said, like, I'm never going to accept that, you said, and I get it. So, but at least in the now, you're able to have peace with it, while you navigate through your now life as a wife, as a mom, as a sister, as a daughter, adult daughter, right? Does that make sense?
Completely. Yeah, I think that's a beautiful way of describing it, the lightness.
Yeah. Yeah. The lightness. I always say that we're we're not here to shine our light, so to speak, on others, but we're here to become more light and more light and more light, because everyone has to find the light in their own path and journey, right? And typically, and sadly, we really don't see the light until we're in the darkness, because that's when we look for the light.
Yes,
Right?
that's so true.
I'm giving you a physical metaphor, but it's true. You walk into a dark room, and the first thing you do is look for, like, where's the light switch, or where's the lamp switch, or whatever. And Conor and I had a little discussion about this, and then I had a discussion with your parents about this, about the eyes and about the window to the soul, as Conor puts it. And I brought up, I appreciated and was aware of what he was saying. And then I brought up, well, what if someone's really physically blind, right? Like, when you're physically blind, like, you still, a blind person has to find that light inside that darkness of that world, right? And so there's levels, if you will, of this constant overcoming. But at the end of the day, it's like we're always just bringing that light up and up and up, or out or brighter, or however that looks like. But it seems like that's like, that is kind of the window to the soul, is
Mhm.
being able to see that and be aware of that, right?
Mhm.
I want to circle back with you, Bridget, but I want to speak with Jack. Jack, welcome to the show. I want to take you back just a moment. And so you were in high school, right, when Conor had his accident, and you came home from school, and I believe your mom and dad said you were at a school dance and you had a nice time
Yeah.
that night. Yeah. Okay. So your parents get the call, and the Conor's in the hospital. What did your dad first tell you?
I think, well, part of it was I was only home from the dance like maybe like 15 to 30 minutes before we got the phone call.
Oh
So
my
I was
goodness.
still awake, still kind of getting ready for bed. So
And
I
still on the
remember,
high of having such a fun time
yeah.
at the dance.
Oh yeah, and also just kind of like like tired from the experience, but also just kind of happy from that time spent with friends.
Mhm.
And then I heard the call go on just kind of down in my parents' bedroom. So it was kind of clear
Oh,
early on, like, okay, this is something bad, just by the reaction of my mom on the phone, and then just kind of the tones of discussion.
wow. That's traumatic all in itself.
Mm, yeah.
Wow. So, because children, what were you, 15, 16,
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
15, 16? Because parents don't always know what their kids can hear. But more importantly, parents don't realize that how in tuned you are as a child. You can feel the emotions of even something they're not saying just by their state.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. So now you go through the throes of seeing Conor. He's in the hospital. Um, you're reunited with your sister. She comes back from college, right? And so, but now a little fast forward. Now Conor, let's say, is going into the rehab. 3 weeks, he's out of the coma. Thank God. Now is the next step for his recovery. Life has to go on for you, right? You do have to go back to school, and graduate that grade at least. And so while coping with Conor's body threatening injuries and his recovery, what was the hardest thing about trying to feel quote unquote normal in high school as a student and a friend and whatever that looks like for you, while navigating through your big brother, going through the struggles to live his life normal?
Yeah. I would say kind of the hardest part about that was just kind of being present for anything going on just back home, because you'd get pretty much weekly updates, especially during the beginning there, stuff that's going on with Conor. Conor's having a surgery, you've got a test or like a track meet coming up. We're gonna try doing a new exercise or a PT exercise with him. You've got some kind of social event. So it was always kind of weird uh trying to be present for all that stuff at home when there was stuff that to me was a lot more important going on elsewhere in Cincinnati. So it was just kind of a weird disconnect while just trying to do the normal day to day life.
Mm. Did you feel guilty wanting to just do other stuff that like was the normal part of your events growing up?
Not so much guilty, because that's I understood that this is like you can't
Right.
put your life on hold and everything. I think it was more just uh
Torn.
it didn't feel of value at the time. So things that
Oh.
might have been more fun or more entertaining or more something that you want to put investment in, it'd be more, well, I could be in Chicago with Connor right now. I could be doing something with family right now. So it was a little harder to get invested with things at home.
And so that was your choice then, to be with Conor and family.
I mean, as much as I could, while also being home and kind of getting some kind of like emotional distance from all that. Because when you're in Chicago, next to your brother, going through all that, it takes its toll. It was a lot of stuff day to day. So sometimes it was nice to just kind of go back home, silent house, try to process things, or just get distracted for a little while.
Yeah, like an exam or something.
Yeah.
Study for something that gets your mind off of it, right? And your
Yeah.
emotions. What would you say was one of the biggest emotions that you had during that time?
I mean, I don't I guess just at that time especially, it was a lot of kind of varying emotions for later use, or for to be dealt with later. So I think it was biggest emotion was almost lack of emotion. It was a lot of times of just feeling numb, trying to
Wow. The
just go
biggest
day to day.
emotion was lack of emotion.
Yeah.
Wow. That's that's I want to say that's very openly profound to be aware of that. And when did you, so you obviously buried that. When did you take out that for later use? That
Um,
those
oh,
emotions.
bit by bit over the following years later, because it was always kind of a process. Even when Conor came home, it was still Conor's at home but still in recovery, and now you're kind of next to that all the time. So it was really it took I would say not until maybe first year or two of college that kind of get some distance, and Conor's recovery progressing to a certain point, whereas started to become a time to like really become aware of emotions that had been buried.
Yeah, because you had more time for yourself, to be
Yeah.
with yourself and your own mind and your own thoughts, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, what did that look like for you from the perspective of a young man? You're in college, you know, you're looking to pursue some kind of career, and at the same time there's this part of your life, like kind of two compartments, if you will. What showed up for you most during that time?
I think, well, I mean, I like right now I work in healthcare, and I think that was kind of a big motivator from the very beginning. Just despite all of the not great things that might have happened at the hospital or at the rehab center, something that was a big positive for me was just kind of seeing all the different doctors and medical personnel that we had established the relationship with, and kind of helped Connor through the journey. So that became kind of uh, a filter for kind of future goals. That was something that I figured this is something I could find value in the future, contributing to in some way. So that
Mm,
kind of became a motivating factor for especially whatever a career would look like.
absolutely. What do you do in the health industry now?
I work supply chain
Supply chain.
for a hospital.
hmm When when Connor was going through his entire transition and growing and recovering and struggling, right, and working really hard at defying the odds and defying the prognosis. Um, did you notice your big brother Connor suffering at all during that
Oh,
during that?
oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's kind of like what Bridget said. He had to start from zero, had to relearn everything, and you could tell that Connor still could remember to a certain degree, life beforehand. He could remember being able to cut a steak, even though he couldn't do it physically at the moment. So that was an incredibly frustrating thing, and you can kind of see, you could just see the immense frustration and just struggle that he would have kind of day to day,
Yeah.
especially that once we were living in the same house, it was a pretty easy thing to see that it wasn't just, oh, he struggled with this one thing today and then it was a hard time. It was everything that happened. So
Yeah, I
brushing
can
teeth, keeping track of the schedule, every single thing. And you just kind of see that just that building frustration over time. And it wasn't, I mean, I'm still incredibly awed by just how he was able to persevere through that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, does it still feel surreal?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. There are times like just it feels like one of those things that like this would happen to somebody else. Like it's just there are times even now that it just doesn't feel, I guess, normal, or
Mhm.
like the memories of life before the accident feel like feel like they're what life should be now.
Mhm. And what is it now?
I think it's just a it's entirely different life. I think kind of like what Bridget said, uh, Connor is a completely different person, and frankly, I'd say we all are. I think
Yeah,
our
that's
relationships are all
profound too.
different, just because
Mhm.
that was 10 years ago, and I was in high school then. Even without an accident, I'd be an entirely different person. That just kind of stepped on the gas a little.
Yeah, one of the things I say, I'm an author. I have a book, Truth to Triumph, and one of the things that I talk about in there is, it- look, who you are today is it's not who you were 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and you're going to find in time as you get older, it's not even really who you were like, 1 year ago or when you were three. Like, and the dreams that you had when you were three, they change. They change because you change. And we all change in years, whether it be because of life situations or not. But many times it is we do change our desires and wants. Um, Sometimes because of life situations, right? But one of the things that I feel that we can depend on is the ability to change and to let go of even a moment. When we talk about being in the present moment, I've had people, challenge me, well, even the moment, ends. And I'm like, yeah, that's the beauty of it. Because not every moment is going to be roses, right? And so even the beauty of moments ending is it helps us kind of grow into the next moment and the next moment and the next moment. And so having said that, um when you saw um your brother in the beginning in rehab, um in this place where many of the patients were in there for a long time, and you guys were well aware um that many of them were vegetables. Were you afraid that your brother might never recover and that might be the future of Connor?
That was definitely something that was kind of on the mind. I think for good reason. Family kind of kept some of the more negative details, or some of the more negative perspectives. They didn't tell me that until much later, which was kind of good, because I would have
Thank
only at
God.
that time just immediately assumed the worst and kind of proceeded from there.
Mm,
Um, I think I didn't think too much about what it would be like in the long term at that time. All I kind of remember from that stage in the hospital, Connor in the bed, like the picture you showed, was
mm,
just kind of the day by day, the next immediate goal. So at the time,
mhm,
there was a lot of swelling in his head. The only thing I could think of was, how do we get the swelling down? How do we get to that next step? Uh,
mhm.
like probably that's probably a healthy way to look at things in retrospect, but it was more just at that time it was too much to consider anything beyond the next step.
Absolutely. I totally get that. And what do you think? What do you feel, Jack, is the number one thing that grew you as a human in this life situation?
Hmm. Um, I'd say I'd say prior to the accident, as any one of my family members could tell you, I was very much kind of go with the flow, very easily checked out. Life was easy because I had such a great family to take care of me there. I think post accident it became a lot easier, or it kind of learning to operate as essentially as an adult, kind of take responsibility for things that you got to take responsibility for, and just kind of develop the, I guess, emotional needs that an adult might have, just patience and empathy and all those things that you need to establish relationships in the future. All those things became easier because, in retrospect, in comparison to this, everyday problems and everyday relationship issues became a lot less relevant or a lot less impactful.
I love that. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. I know our listeners will as well. I'm going to bring on Conor. Conor, thank you for being so patient. Conor, okay, so you've heard some of the questions and you've heard the answers from Bridget and Jack. I want to ask you a question that's very much in the moment. So today is your nephew's birthday. He's 3, right?
Yeah.
What feelings come to you when you think about now, like that next generation? There's mom and dad, there's you siblings, and now you've got the next generation. Literally, you're all going to be sharing birthday cake, I assume, later on today. What does that feel for you?
I think it's extremely exciting. If you take what am I saying? If you hold the opportunities that your nieces and nephews get, close, it all just blossoms.
I love that. And what do you think about the newborn baby? He's 9 weeks old, right? What is that like when you...
It's a she. I'm sorry.
It's a she.
Yeah. I'm very excited to grow, be witness to her aging days
Mm.
or years.
How blessed do you feel, if at all, to really be able to be in this space now, with your brother and sister, and now being an uncle, your parents still very much healthy and in your lives? Does that feel like a blessing for you?
I mean, yes, everything worked out to the epitome of what it could have worked out towards. I realized I went through. I'm sorry, Bridget and Jack, but I realized I went through a trial most are fortunate enough not to have to go through. But but because I have my brother and sister and my parents to round out the house, it is rather exciting.
Yeah. Your parents feel very blessed, and at the end of the day, what was really most important that kind of came out, like that amongst the weeds, what came out really shining was the family unit. Do you agree with that, Conor? Or is that something that you feel was really a great foundation, and something you can really really put your arms around the family unit as it is today?
I feel like saying that my family is a great foundation is an understatement.
It's an understatement.
An understatement because um they are so because they're so great and just in of themselves that I get to call them family members.
Yeah.
You know, and not just strangers I met on the street or any of that. It's just truly epitomizing of what family can be and do.
Yes.
And it's not like you either be or you do. Is one fluid motion.
Mm-hmm. Your mom talked about a paper that you wrote before the accident.
Yes.
Do you
Yeah.
recall that?
Yeah, I know it's one. Um,
What was the essence of that paper?
well, it was I'll just cut to it because it was Yahweh's Symphony.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was like about the essence of everything and like
Everything connected, right?
everything's connected and like everything happens because everything else happened before it.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
so that was fortunately um that I wrote that couple weeks before my accident. Like little did I know in a couple weeks I'd be having surgery on my brain, but
Seriously, right?
I mean who expects that?
Yeah. I have to tell you this one thing. This is our second conversation, right, Connor? And I have to say, your ability to find laughter and smile in every conversation
I-
far exceeds anyone else's.
That's the secret.
That's the
Everyone
secret.
asks me like, what trick did you do to get you this far from an accident? I would love to just tell everyone laughter. I
Laughter.
mean, it can be as silly as you want, but as long as you approach it with the ability to laugh at whatever.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And yesterday you talked about uh just be kind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not sure why we make it so difficult
Mm.
to like why everything is so great. It is great because we make it great and we offer the greatness to everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Ev-
I think we take, well, most of us take life for granted. In fact, um, speaking of that, um, I'm going to ask you what might be a tough question. The
I love tough questions.
Okay, good. Then I'm going to fire away. In light of how many of us take things for granted, when you were struggling, clearly struggling to get your functionality back, from
Yeah.
swallowing to lifting an arm to eye movement to walking to everything, eating, drinking, um, was there a time where you had an aha moment that, you took everything you had learned in life from a baby growing up for granted?
You know, actually, it all hit me when I was in my coma. Or when I'm not sure if it was when I was in my coma or the millisecond the accident happened. Everything was so clear and everything was so majestic and all that because it was just so the beauty of my experience was the beauty of the simple.
Mm-hmm.
Beauty of like the simple, all that.
The beauty of your experience was the beauty of the simple. I'm repeating because your volume's a little low for me. So that is really amazing what you just said.
I don't know how to turn up.
You're fine. You're fine. So then what was so simple about it?
Oh, was so simple. I mean, it was just not taking for granted, or just not taking for whatever because it was normal. And the thing is, yes, it is amazing and it is whatever, but it's just the fact of like being appreciative or being let me think one sec. Yeah, like because because we're not handed everything, it kind of makes you more appreciative for the things we are thankful or grateful for.
I totally get that. And there
Yeah.
lies the simplicity.
Yeah, I mean, it all sums up to a very simple gratitude or thank you or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. Totally. And so Dad says you're working now. What are you doing for work?
Oh, it's a grocery store.
Nice.
So,
Do people annoy you there? People are just annoying sometimes, right? Especially at the grocery store. I used to work at a grocery store when I was young. And people used to holler over like 10-cent coupons. At the time, there were coupons. I'm like, dude, it's just 10 cents. But I realized it meant a lot to other people. Again, the simplicity of life, right? What do you like most about interacting with people at the grocery store? Customers? Laughter?
Yeah. Because it is healthy to laugh.
Mm-hmm.
I just try and find a way to get people to chuckle or to laugh.
Mm-hmm. How do you do that?
It varies per individual. I mean, it's not like one joke I crack every time I go up to someone. It's really personal for everyone.
Yeah.
And it's easier to be able to size someone up when you approach them, and then you can crack a joke that they will like.
Right. And you size them up by looking at their eyes, right?
Well, yeah.
We had this conversation yesterday, Bridget and Jack. He said, I could size you up by looking in your eyes. I said, okay, I'm going to put you up to that. He goes, well, because we were talking about, all kidding aside, we were talking about some of the tools that that works for him and continues to work for him in reciprocation, of course, to that main goal of staying, highly functional. One of them was eye therapy. The other was functional chiropractor. And the third was occupational therapy, right? Those are the three things that really works and continues to work for Conor. And he was saying yesterday that how important that the eye therapy is and how the eyes are the windows to the soul, right?
Yes, and I was not saying that I could know like everything about you by
I
looking
know.
at. I was saying they can.
Right.
Because
Like an ophthalmologist. Yeah. Optometrist? No, ophthalmologist.
uptown.
Optometrist. Yeah. One or the other. I forget. One's for glasses. One's a real, the eye doctor. So I'm going to switch over to Bridget for a moment. Bridget, I want to ask you, when you look at your brother's eyes, we all look into each other's eyes, right? We look into our loved one's eyes, our son, our daughter, our loved one, significant other, wife, husband, mom, dad. When you look into Conor's eyes, do you see peace?
He's talking, but he's muted. I I think I do. I think I do. I think at the core of who he is, there is the peace there. I think, of course, the day to day noise gets in the way at times, but I do think, at the core of who he is, there is peace. I think it's just, like I said, the noise or kind of the other things that life brings that make it complicated to access that at times for him. But we always say, like, Conor has been the lighthouse for us. He's always been that steady presence of being able to find the good, find the way to rise above, probably more so than the four of us have been able to do. So
that's an
I do
amazing
think,
awareness.
really, yeah, he definitely has that.
That's beautiful. Yeah, I talk about that when there's clearness in the eyes. I use the word that, like, it's my verbiage. I use, like, when you look into someone's eyes, you could see that they're clear. To me, that means that they're at peace from their past adversity, and they've come to that point of peace and light, right, and love. And it's almost like when okay, to our conversation here, when he was in a coma and he first opened his eyes, I'm sure they looked blank, right? There was a different look in the eye, right? And so we've come like this far. And when you talk about like that he's the lighthouse, that's so special, because it continuously brings us down to, it forces us to really come down to like the present moment of, wow, he's more present than we are, and of course there's those, because he's right in the moment, happy and laughing and whatever, right? And then you talk about when you say, well, then there's all the other things going on, like kind of like the static in the mind, right? Usually why we all try and come down to presence, meditate, even, just letting go of all of that noise in the mind is something that we all deal with, and we don't have, traumatic brain injury. And so imagine how much of a challenge he did overcome by really letting go of all of that noise and how peaceful it is in his brain right now.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm.
And I just think it's like one way of thinking about it. You know, I've worked with and coached with a lot of people, and and I write a lot, and I research a lot, and I've got to say, there is even a different level that other people go through. And Conor, you might appreciate this. There's people that are living in this sandwich world, if you will, where like their mother is schizophrenic and their father has Alzheimer's, right? And their child, has some kind of disability of sorts. And so they're getting it at all angles too. But what I found was us in our state, our human state, where we think we're quote unquote normal. The truth is, many times in their state, they're more stable in presence than sometimes we are, living in all of the static that's going in our mind and the worry and the fear and all of that. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. I think that's exactly what Conor has been. And it's always been a nice reminder for us that's why I said like the lighthouse, to kind of remind ourselves of that, because Conor's always been able to access that when it's been harder for us. And I think, yes, you're right. I think he's able to access that because of how much he has endured and persevered through, and he has access to that more than maybe we do.
Yeah, interesting. I want to ask Jack for a moment. Jack, when you look at things now, given what Bridget and I were just talking about, and that Conor, you guys talk about him being the lighthouse, right? Don't you think it's ironic that he still shines as like the older brother?
I mean, not really, because Connor being an older brother, that was just a core part of who he is from day
Okay.
one. That was always our relationship then, and despite any changes now, Connor will still always be the older brother. He'll still always kind of have that desire to be that person, that protector. That's core to who Connor is, regardless of time.
And so isn't that beautiful to see that, like, and that's never died out, and in fact is, it kind of underscores that spirit is spirit no matter what body's housing the soul.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. What, if anything at all, Jack, what would you like to say to any brothers out there that are going through or have gone through an adverse situation with their sibling, like you did, but their own situation, of course? What would you tell them as a brother going through something or not being able to let go of something that they went through?
That's a good question. I would say, with the fortunate thing about family is that they're always there, that there's always, you always have that connection with them. So I would say it means a lot more to put in that time and put in that effort to work with them to either move past or get over something, because you want that time spent with them to be good. You want as much of that uh time you have with them on this earth to be a positive one, to be one that you work together and that you enjoy things together. And I think when you go through stuff like that, stuff like what Connor and I have been through, it's not easy and it takes a lot of work to get over. But the memories I have of Connor that I enjoy the most are many of which stuff that's happened only in the most recent of years, because we've kind of developed that relationship and moved past some of the hardship.
That's pretty cool. Like what?
Well, for starters, Connor and I we found a show on History Channel, Ancient Aliens, or like just really not a good show at all. Connor and I will make a joke about that at least once every time we're together. That's just, it's kind of one of those things that we've just got those list of inside jokes that no matter what, we'll laugh at, we'll have a good time with.
I
Those
love it.
beforehand.
That's great. Give me another instance.
Another instance, I'm trying to think. Connor and I, we always joke about going to the same restaurants, just the stuff that my mom or dad don't usually like, but Connor and I do like. It's always fun that like whenever it's just the two of us, it's kind of our chance to go out and go to this place to eat and then remember why our parents don't like it, because they are objectively not that great.
Objectively not that great. That's amazing. Thank you for that. That's fantastic. I'm going to go to Bridget. Bridget, is there something, what would you like to tell our audience, tell as a sister, what would you tell other siblings that are going through a tough time, that maybe are not in a strong family unit? How could they overcome?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think to find your village, whatever that might be, find the people who will be able to be there for you, that community. If it's not your family of origin, then the family you create, friends, because you do need other people in order to get through something like this. Um, and I think that it's okay also to feel it all. It's okay to feel all of the different complex emotions as you go through this journey of joy and grief and sadness and anger and um, relief, all of the things that come with this journey. Like, it's okay to feel it all, and that there is something to time, and that um, it doesn't last forever, the intensity of the feeling, I guess. Like, as we go on and Connor and I develop more of our relationship, and Jack and him develop, and three of us develop our relationships, things are different, and but the intensity of the trauma that we were going through, over time, that has released a little bit more. And so I guess, to remember that things are temporary, but also within that, it's okay to feel whatever is coming up for you.
I love that. I love that. I always say, and I say it in my book too, nothing is forever and everything's for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And
I like that.
thank you. And honestly, telling myself that got me through a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, hopefully that helps you guys and helps people that are listening. I want to ask, I'm gonna put this to you, Connor. What is your favorite current event, or whatever that you do with the three of you together now, currently?
So what was my favorite thing to do with us three?
Yes. What's your favorite thing that the three of you do today?
Just being together.
Give me a for instance, like Jack said, he loves watching that show with you and him watch, and he likes going to like these, restaurants that your parents would never, go to. What is this something? Is there something that you love to enjoy with your two siblings?
Well, I enjoy things with them separately.
Okay. So what do you enjoy with separately with just Bridget?
With Bridget, just the philosophical talks.
Ah,
Yeah.
okay.
And
What about with
all
Jack?
Jack, I love getting shakes with Jack.
You live what?
I love getting milkshakes and laughing.
Oh,
Milkshakes.
milkshakes. You
Oh.
love milkshakes with Jack. That's pretty cool.
I mean, it's so dumb because you can get milkshakes with anybody, but I enjoy getting milkshakes with my brother.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I want everyone to unmute themselves. And do you guys all remember like a really old show when your mom and dad were young and myself, the Brady Bunch?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So somehow when you're on this visual podcast, we're like, we're like the Brady Bunch and we're all like, we're all lined up. But I want to ask you guys, and you can answer in tandem as we end this episode. What is it that most makes you laugh about your sibling? Anyone can choose anyone that they want.
I can go. I think Jack makes me laugh with his dry humor and dry delivery of things, as you've probably heard today in the podcast. Jack he's the one that makes our whole family laugh all the time. Just that he has incredible memory of things. He can remember things when he was like 3 months old, I bet. So he just has incredible memory, and he brings it up and he delivers lines in such a dry, humorous, and very funny way. So that's what makes me laugh about Jack. With Conor, I think you make me laugh. And sometimes I feel like you don't, in his unintentional way, like you don't actually you're not trying to be funny, but you say things and then you catch yourself and they're actually very funny. I think Conor makes me laugh too when he's with especially my son. They are very sweet and cute together, and it's fun to see him as an uncle. And he's, unfortunately, my 3-year-old takes real advantage of Conor, and tells him to go on his spaceship with him and do all of these things, and Conor just is along for the ride. And it just things that Henry has Conor do is a little funny, so that makes me laugh.
Thank
these
you for
days.
sharing. That's beautiful. How about you, Jack?
I would say, I would say for Bridget, thing that makes me laugh the most is Bridget will commit to a bit to as far of a degree as necessary. Which whenever like we're just talking about anything or joking about something, it's always just, it will never fail to impress me or make me laugh. Just Bridget throughout that whole conversation. If we argue about something and Bridget's right 30 years later, that'll still be like it's real low.
That's great.
And as for Conor, I think the part that makes me laugh the most about Conor is, despite all we say about Conor with memory, there will be times that he will pull a memory from our childhood or from way back when, a name of something that we haven't thought of for a crisp decade, that will just come out of nowhere, and he'll talk about it, and it's just it brings back all kind of memories.
You're like, what? Where did that come from? That's great. Conor, what makes you laugh most about your siblings?
I'll start with Bridget. How particularly correct she is. Yeah, she's looking at you. But and Jack is just, Bridget was right. He brings the humor despite if he is intentionally doing it or unintentionally. So I just love them both.
I love it. Thank you guys for being here. I love you guys all for being here. And I love feeling the love in this room. Thank you so much for being here and being on Beyond the Current Situation.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much.
You bet.